Good morning, children. Welcome to English lesson. Unit 2, Natural Disasters. Today's theme, Hurricane KAtrina. Learning objectives. Use imagination to express thoughts, ideas, experiences, and feelings. Deduce meaning from context in extended text on a wide range of familiar general and curricular topics, and some unfamiliar topics. Write with grammatical accuracy on a range of familiar general and curricular topics. Vocabulary. Check these words. Strengthen, residence, declare, state of emergency, evacuate, eye of the storm, below sea level, come ashore, levee, storm surge, smash, looting, violence, emergency services, struggle to cope, the military, disparate, army engineers, pump, slow recovery, rebuild. Exercise 1. How did Hurricane KAtrina affect New Orleans? Listen and read to find out. Hurricane KAtrina, the tragedy of New Orleans. On Wednesday, 24th August 2005, a tropical storm formed over the Bahamas, about 560 kilometers east of Miami, Florida. By 25th August, the storm had strengthened and become Hurricane KAtrina. Residents of the city of New Orleans had no idea that within days, 80% of their city would be underwater in one of the worst disasters in U.S. history. Hurricane KAtrina was one of the most powerful storms that has ever hit the Atlantic coast with winds of over 270 kilometers per hour. As it became stronger over the Gulf of Mexico, and mayor of New Orleans declared a state of emergency and started evacuating the city. When the eye of the storm missed the city by about 72 kilometers, everyone thought the worst was over. But they were very wrong. New Orleans has always been under threat from flooding. With the Mississippi River on two sides, Lake Pontchartrain to the north, and parts of the city 2 meters below sea level, a series of high walls called levees protect it. As the hurricane came ashore, it brought an 8-meter high storm surge that threw the rivers up to New Orleans and smashed through the levees. Over 1 million residents had already left the city, but tens of thousands, mainly the elderly and the poor, were in temporary shelters. As the waters rose, people were begging for help on roofs, and neighborhoods were suffering from looting and violence. Emergency service struggled to cope. Eventually, the military and the National Guard moved into the city and began to get food and water to the desperate few that remained. After 43 days, army engineers pumped the last of the flood water out of the city. Almost 1,500 people had lost their lives because of Hurricane KAtrina in New Orleans alone. These days, New Orleans is making a slow recovery. The city has improved the levees, the community is rebuilding itself, and everyone is working hard to make sure that nothing like this will ever happen again. Exercise 2. Read again and match the subheadings AD to the paragraphs 1-6. There is one extra heading. A. Surrounded by water. B. Gathering strength. C. Collapsing buildings. D. Moving on. E. The birth of the storm. F. Help at last. G. An awful situation. Okay, it's right. Have you finished? Okay, continue. Please watch this video.
Over the Bahamas forms Tropical Depression 12, a swirling band of wind and rain. It picks up moisture and heat, and with them, speed. As its winds reach 39 miles per hour, it becomes a tropical storm and is given a name, Katrina. Along the coast of Florida, a hurricane warning is announced, the 1st of May. By 4 o'clock, Katrina grows into a Category 1 hurricane. With 80-mile-an-hour winds, it sideswipes through Florida, just north of Miami. By midnight, over 1 million homes lose power. 11 lives are lost. Katrina hooks north into the Gulf of Mexico and quickly picks up speed and size, becoming a Category 2 hurricane. Locals try to safeguard their property as the governors of Louisiana and Mississippi declare states of emergency. As its winds reach 115 miles an hour, Katrina turns into a Category 3 hurricane, with New Orleans in its sights. City officials urge those who can to evacuate. Traffic jams snarl the highways as up to 18,000 cars an hour try to make it out of harm's way. Katrina grows into a Category 4 hurricane. A few hours later, it reaches Category 5, the highest possible rating. Winds exceed 175 miles an hour. All residents in New Orleans are ordered to evacuate. For those without the means to leave, the city sets up shelters. Many locals simply hunker down in their homes and prepare to weather the storm. As dawn breaks, Katrina's wind speeds slow back down to a Category 4 hurricane. It makes landfall at 6 a.m., 60 miles southeast of New Orleans. Its 140-mile-an-hour winds pummel the coasts of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. The eye of the storm moves just east of New Orleans, but the city is not spared. New Orleans sits below sea level, surrounded by Lake Pontchartrain and the Mississippi River. High flood walls called levees keep the water at bay. But by 8 a.m., there are reports that a levee has broken. The waters of Lake Pontchartrain rush in. Levees in 3 locations are breached. 80% of the city is flooded. Some neighborhoods are submerged under 20 feet of water. As night falls, Katrina slows to a tropical storm. It heads north through Tennessee and into Kentucky. The damage is immense. In Mississippi, the hurricane has crushed coastal towns. Hundreds are feared dead. New Orleans lies in shambles. It is left without power, without drinking water. Many residents are stranded on rooftops, desperate to be rescued. Bodies float in the streets. Looting breaks out. Thousands make their way to the Superdome and Convention Center in hopes of being evacuated. The waters stop rising, but the city is in chaos. Looting and violence are so widespread that police are forced to stop rescue operations to combat the problem. Conditions at the Superdome and Convention Center are increasingly unsafe. People lack food, water, and basic sanitation. There are reports of violent assaults. Altogether, over 50,000 people wait for the buses that will evacuate them. For most, the buses do not come. The National Guard arrives in force and restores order. They bring convoys of food and water. Evacuations begin in earnest. By the following Monday, the Army Corps of Engineers plugs major holes in the levees. Draining pumps go back in operation, and the waters subside. The residents of the Gulf slowly return, their lives forever changed by the power of a hurricane.
Exercise 3. Match the words in bold with their meanings. Broke, manage, moved from the sea to land, sending people to a place of safety, old people, in danger, asking, anxiously, stealing, announced. Good job! Next task exercise 4. Fill in. Threat, recovery, back, declare, shelters, pump, tropical, level, rise, struggle, lose, I. Okay. Have you finished? Thank you very much. Exercise 5. Think. Imagine you lived through Hurricane KAtrina. Narrate your experience. Thank you very much. Home task. Exercise 6 on page 30. Find information about a disaster that happened in your country. Find out what kind of disaster it was, when, why it happened, what the situation is now. Compare it to the disaster in New Orleans. Thank you for your attention. You were very active today. Our lesson is over. Goodbye.